Yeah, hi there, Clint here from the Property Investor Centre. Just want to spend the next few minutes talking about how you can build to rent to beat the new rules. So by now, I'm sure you've all heard about the new rules that were introduced a little bit over 12 months ago by our government, and these played a direct impact on us with property investment. So the first one was the extension of the bright line rule, so a capital gains tax type rule, from 5 years to 10 years. The trigger date for that was any properties purchased after the 27th of March 2021. You had to have a bright line applied to you of 10 years rather than 5. So new build properties have an exemption from that, and a 5-year bright line test still applies to a brand new property. So if you sell the property within a 5-year period, then you need to pay a tax on the gains that you have made. The second rule that they introduced, and this one was a little bit more severe, was that they removed the ability to deduct mortgage interest on residential investment property in your annual tax return. So you were always able to deduct that as an expense because it is an expense. Well, now they've removed the ability for investors to do that on residential property. So any properties acquired after the 27th of March 2021, you won't be able to deduct mortgage interest. Properties acquired before that date, you can still deduct some mortgage interest, but at a reducing rate over 4 years. And once that 4-year period is up, you can no longer claim any mortgage interest for that property. There are, however, some exemptions to that interest deduction limitation rule. The first one being that new build properties can still claim mortgage interest for a 20-year period after the issue of the Code of Compliance certificate. Also, property developers are exempt from those interest deduction limitations. Now, isn't that interesting? So obviously the government are wanting to incentivize investors to build new property, so to increase the housing supply. All right, so that last one, talking about interest deduction, is a big deal. So a lot of you will have been wanting to invest in new property. Not so much the older existing properties anymore, even though there's still some things we can do with those to get some benefits from them. But a lot of people are now looking to invest in new property. So what are our options for doing that? Well, the main option and the easiest one for most people is to go out and just buy a brand new residential property, so a brand new townhouse, a brand new home, or a brand new apartment of some description, direct from the developer or from the builder that's just finished building the thing. So it's brand spanking new. You've either bought it off the plan or you've bought it soon after it's been finished, and it's still classed as a new property. Okay, so obviously the pros of that is that we now, with a new build property, we have a 5-year bright line test rather than a 10, and we can still deduct our mortgage interest payments for that new build exemption period, which the government has set at 20 years. So the cons of doing this, okay, it's much harder to buy well below value when you're buying a brand spanking new property. So the way that we invest, we don't like to completely rely on capital gain to make gains on a property. We like to get a instant equity gain when we buy. So when we've been buying existing properties over the years, we like to try and buy those at a discount. And it's much harder to buy something brand spanking new with a reasonable discount. Can be done, but it's much harder. With brand new property, it's also near impossible to add any further value to that property. Okay, it's brand spanking new. there is no upside to be had. You can't gain value by doing a renovation. There's no, generally, if it's infill housing that you've bought, or it's a townhouse, that's been just developed and the land has been developed to its maximum potential. So there's nothing else that you're able to do there to add further value to that property generally. Many new builds also don't make that greater rental properties. They often have quite low yields, unless you've purchased a specialist investment product, which there are some out there. They're few and far between, but generally, unless you're buying an investment specialist product, often the yields are quite low and their suitability for a rental property is not that great. You also have a lack of control, and often if you're buying a townhouse in a townhouse development, or you're buying a brand new apartment or something like that, it's one of many, and there's often body corporates involved, and you don't have control over the whole property. You have control over the one that you own, but you have no control over the neighbouring properties, which are all in close proximity, obviously. And also market timing can be an issue. So for a lot of people that have bought into new property developments over the years, one strategy was to buy off the plan. And at certain times of the market, buying off the plan can be a great strategy. But it's something that you want to look at doing at the start of an upward market cycle, okay, where you lock in your price, you buy into the development off the plan, so the building hasn't started yet, the building doesn't exist yet, you lock in your buy price, and the property might be built over 18 months, 2 years, 3 years down the track, and you've already set your price, and by the time the property is built and ready for settlement, it has increased in value, obviously because the market's been dragging the value up. Okay, that works great if you get your timing right, but if you get your timing wrong, it can be a complete disaster. So if you're buying off the plan into a long settlement development and the market turns like it has, you can end up seeing a finished value, which is actually less than what you signed up to pay off the plan. Obviously, that's not ideal. There's no future in that, and we highly recommend against buying off the plan at those wrong times in the market. You need to get in early in the upward cycle. Okay, so the second option that we have for investing in new build property is to actually build brand new residential property ourselves to our own specifications and structured for a higher rental yield. Okay, so obviously we have the 5-year bright line rather than the 10-year for existing, so that's a big plus. And we can still deduct our mortgage interest for the new build exemption period of 20 years, just like if we were to buy a brand new property from a developer or a builder. However, when we buy a property, brand new property from a developer or a builder, we are paying a retail price for that property, aren't we? The developer or the builder, or both, in some cases, they're making the development margin. They're making a big margin out of that property. So the price that it's cost them to build it compared to what they've sold it to you for, they've made a nice big fat margin in the middle there. So we want to look at getting that margin ourselves and creating an equity gain on settlement or on completion, just like we've always been used to when we're buying existing property and buying it at a discount below what it's really worth. So we like to get a sizable equity gain on completion, and by doing a project like this ourselves and having it built for us ourselves, we can get an equity gain on completion. We also get control of the project ourselves as well. So we can control every single part of it whereas if we just sign up to buy something from a developer, we don't really have a lot of control over what's going on. We also have the option of building multiple smaller dwellings on a section, and we can structure that for higher rental yields. So we've always favoured buying or investing in multi-unit blocks of flats. We always like smaller units. If we've got a number of smaller units on the one section, we get a diversification of rental income across different family units, and we get a higher amount of rental income off that one piece of land. So by doing things this way, we're able to achieve that same result. We also look at putting these separate units on separate titles, so separate legal titles, and we do that for our eventual exit strategy once the new build exemption period ends. So if we held on to them for a long time and we got to, we own them for 20 years, say, and we lost the ability to claim our mortgage interest, then we might not want to own them any longer. That might be our time to sell them. If they were all on one title, well, we would be very limited with who we could sell them to, okay, because no other investor would want to buy them because that 20-year exemption period had come to an end and they wouldn't be able to claim their mortgage interest. So if we've got them on separate titles, we're able to sell each of those dwellings off to a separate homeowner, a retiree, a first home buyer, etc., etc. Okay, so you'll see here in that example there, we've got those 3 small units there. They all look the same. This is the same property, just a closer, zoomed up a little bit closer. And then you go to this 10-unit development here, where exactly the same units, and you'll notice there's actually 10 of them there, and they're all exactly the same. Okay, so there's a good reason for that, and we'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. So the type of construction methods available to us today are many and varied. So gone are the days where our only option was to get a builder to construct and build a dwelling on the site for us. Okay, so one of the options that we're working with these days is what we call off-site construction or prefab construction. Other names for it are factory-built dwellings, transportable dwellings. All of those names are used to describe what we're talking about here. So what are the benefits of this type of construction? So there's a number of efficiencies that they get out of building these prefabbed homes in a factory. Okay, so they're all built in a factory where they're able to get all of the subcontractors and things in there to do certain jobs on the dwelling, and it's an efficient model. It's an efficient way of doing things. There's much higher quality control, and they're often all built in a massive big warehouse undercover. So if it's a wet, horrible day outside, and normally the builders wouldn't be able to be on site working, well, that's not a problem anymore, because as you can see in the picture there, they're all built in a massive big warehouse. So from a time point of view, it's very efficient. It's a shorter build time because everything is there in the one place. Everything can be streamlined, and everything can all the tradies can work in with each other much more efficiently and in a timely manner. There's a lot less wastage we find, so therefore they're able to build these at a lower cost per square metre than what a normal construction company would be able to build you a property with the construction on site. So it's very cost effective, and there's a whole lot of cost controls. Okay, so it's just a nice efficient model of building homes. There's also an ease of council building inspections. It's much easier for the council inspectors to go out, visit the factory and do all of their inspections as the dwelling is coming together and being built in the factory. There's obviously a far greater security for you during the build. You're not going to have issues with the property getting broken into before it's finished and things stolen from the property, like so often does happen with normal on-site construction these days, unfortunately. The house build, so the build of the dwelling, can actually start before the building consent comes through for the site that the building will eventually end up on. Okay, so when you're doing a factory built home like this, there's 2 building consents that need to be issued before you can get that property on site, on the final site. So a building consent needs to be granted to the construction company that's building the home in the factory, and another building consent needs to be issued before that home can be transported and placed on the final site. Okay, so a lot of times, in most situations, you can't start building if you haven't had your building consent come through for the site. Whereas if you're still waiting for your building consent to come through for the site, but the building consent has been issued to the construction company, they can start building your property for you before you've even had your consent issued for the final site. So there's more efficiencies of time there as well. Okay, so what are some of the drawbacks of this type of factory built prefab transportable type dwelling? What are the drawbacks? So obviously it requires a truck access to the site where you want the dwelling to be. So basically the dwelling gets put on the back of a truck, delivered to your site, then moved from the back of the truck onto the piles on the site. So if you have a site that cannot be accessed, you can't get a truck to it, so say it was a infill housing type site, and it was a rear section and it was all closed off all around it with other properties, and you just couldn't get a truck to it, well then that would be a problem. Okay, and then you would need to look at other forms of construction for that site. Some sites you may require a crane, so they may be able to get the truck close enough, but they can't get the truck directly onto the site, but it's quite feasible to have a heavy lift crane that can actually crane the new transportable dwelling onto the site for you. That does add some expense, and that's when you'd need to start looking at more normal types of construction on the site. The building size is somewhat limited by the fact that it needs to be transported on a truck to the site. Generally for us and what we're looking to achieve, we prefer to deal with multiple smaller dwellings anyway, so it's not a concern to us. But if you were using this type of construction for a much larger home, well then that is a potential issue. They do 4-bedroom homes, but they tend to be long and skinny because they need to go on the back of a truck to be transported. But generally for what we're doing with multi-unit investment properties, it's not an issue at all. Financing for homes that are built off-site can be a little bit trickier than normal on-site builds. However, some of the lenders are starting to come to the party, and some lenders are better set up than others for the funding of an off-site or factory-built home. Okay, so enter our hybrid model. So this is what we call develop, invest, trade, or our hybrid model. So it's where we do new build, smaller multi-units, higher rental income, and higher cash flow. It's where we have the ability to create an equity gain on completion of the project, we get to rent those homes out for passive income. So we're building to keep and rent. So we get to rent the homes out for passive income. We hold on to those properties for the capital gains over time. There's a 5-year bright line in place for new builds, not 10 years if we were investing in non-new build existing properties. And then the biggie is the fact that the mortgage interest is still deductible for a period of 20 years, which is that exemption period, which is a decent long time. We have them on separate titles for our eventual exit strategy. So even if we weren't looking to hold them for a 20-year period and have our 20-year exemption period actually run out, but if we were only looking at holding them for 10 years, well then it's still really attractive to sell to another investor, and they've still got 10 years of that exemption period left where they're able to claim the mortgage interest themselves. And because they're on separate titles, it's attractive because they've got the exit strategy to sell them off to individual buyers, homeowners, retirees, first home buyers, etc. So it's just very smart right from the start to make sure that you put these on separate titles for that eventual exit strategy. Okay, so here's an example of our hybrid model here. So here was a site with an old existing dwelling on it. It was an old home, getting a little bit untidy and well and truly in need of some improvements. So the site was 660 square meters, and initially the site was purchased, was rented out to get some holding income off it, while they went through the process of getting all of the subdivision consents and building consents in place to go ahead and do the project. So the plan was to split that into 3 separate lots of 220 square meters each. Okay, so eventually, once all the building consents, subdivision consents come through, the site was cleared, and then within 1 month of basically the site being cleared, it looked like that. So it's been subdivided into 3 lots of 220 square meters and 3 small factory built. These ones were only 1 bedrooms, 50 square meter 1 bedroom dwellings, all super smart and nice inside, quite modern, funky little dwellings. They were put on site, a little bit of hard and soft landscaping done, some fencing, some off-street parking areas made there, little bit of decking, very small area out the back, deck out the front, room for a small courtyard and an off-street car park, and they're all on 3 separate titles. Okay, so let's have a look at some numbers of that project. So the site was purchased at around 650k. 3 times 50 square meter 1 bedroom prefab factory built homes were built prior and then dropped onto the site. 124k each turnkey. To get them on the site, we're looking at about 174,500 each, or a total of 523,000. So the total cost of the project, 1,173,500. Rental potential of those 3 properties combined was about $1,500 per week. Only 1 bedroom properties, remember. So there was a positive cash flow, pre-tax cash flow surplus of a bit over $20,000 per annum. Now, because all the mortgage interest is claimable, you get to keep that minus the tax that you would pay on that. You get to claim your mortgage interest, so it's nice and attractive like it always was. The total value of that project come in at a bit over $1.7 million, or approximately 575k each. That property was actually put on the market and sold, and the total selling price was $1,725,000, and that returned the developer of that project about $550,000 of profit. Okay, so let's have a look at another project that one of our e-coaching clients is doing at the moment, working to that same hybrid model. So he's bought a property in Levin in the Horowhenua, and then he's sought subdivision approval for that to divide that property into 2 lots, and then he's planning on putting 2 dwellings on each lot. So he's making each lot into a home and income property, as you can see in the right hand image there. Okay, so this was the wonderful property that he purchased in Levin. So you can see that this particular property had a much better, higher and greater use than what it currently has, right? It's one of those renovate or detonate type properties, and that's pretty much exactly what he did. He ended up clearing the site and getting it ready for this subdivision and new build project. So a very untidy property, bit of an odd one out in the neighbourhood, and all of the neighbours will be well and truly more than happy to see the back of it, I'm sure. Okay, so he sought a resource consent to split that site into two titles, 2 lots, and that come through, and there's the proposed site plan there, where you can see that there's a what they call a major dwelling and a minor dwelling, both on one title. So there's a 3-bedroom home plus a 2-bedroom home on one site, and then another 3-bedroom home and another 2-bedroom secondary dwelling on the second site. So you've got 4 brand new properties split over 2 titles. And there's the picture there of the site all cleared. There's some retaining walls and what have you that need to be put in there before the building can commence. Okay, so Kritzo is actually not going with prefab factory built homes, but he's bought some Kitset Homes, which have been delivered to the site in containers already, and then he's getting a builder to construct those homes on site. He found that for his site and for the location of the site and the location of the Kitset home providers, it was going to be more efficient and work better that way, working with a pre-purchased Kitset home and then getting a builder to construct it on site. So this is an example of the foundations, piles, and the steel joists and things that they use prior to getting the Kitset home constructed. And that's what the home will look like when it's completed. That's a different site. That's just an example of what it will look like. So we've actually done a full interview. It was a bit over an hour long with Kritzo, who's our client who's doing this project in Levin at the moment. And we did a really sort of full-on interview with him where he worked through everything that he's learned throughout this process. So Kritzo, over the years, has been working with us in the e-coaching program for a number of years now, and he's completed some really neat multi-unit investment property projects where he's purchased older blocks of flats, done some fantastic renovations to them, added a huge amount of value, increased the rents, kept them and rented them and held on to them for the income and the capital gain over time. Obviously, with the new rules being introduced, he's pivoted over to doing the subdivision and new build project to achieve the same types of things, but with new build property for all of the benefits of the new build property under the new rules. So if you want to learn more about investing in your own new build projects, and would you like to learn more about how we can help you do that? If your answer is yes, then you should seriously consider working with us as a member of our eCoaching Plus property mentoring program. So what is eCoaching Plus? Basically, it's a comprehensive property investing training program. It's a complete and proven step-by-step investing system. It contains all of our strategies, methods, knowledge and experiences gained over the course of building our own property portfolios over the last 20 to 30 years. Nothing is left out. It includes every last bit of info you'll need to be able to apply all of these strategies and invest in property successfully in this new environment. It's a course designed to teach you how to invest to build long-term sustainable wealth and passive income over time. How's the course delivered? Well, it's a web-based training and mentoring program. So ever since we started delivering property training programs like this right back in early 2009, we've been delivering things in the same way. Okay, so we've used technology to help us deliver the content of our training programs and coach clients using technology to help us. So it's a series of on-demand video training modules or sessions, and we also have regular live group Q&A sessions as well, where all of the clients get together and they've sent in questions prior, which we get going with, and then that generates more questions from the group in a live group call environment. We record these and they're available to be viewed again later via the members area if you're unable to attend the live session. So all of this allows you to learn at your own pace as your schedule permits, 24/7 days a week. It caters for multiple learning styles, i.e. video, audio, text, images, live demos, live group Q&A sessions, etc. All you need to participate is an internet connected computer or device. You've got the ability to review each training session as often as you like, so that you'll never suffer from that info overload like so often happens with the more traditional live lectures or live group meeting type situation, where if the presenter goes off on a bit of a tangent and gets sidetracked and you kind of miss out on something, then you don't have the ability to go back over it like you do with our sessions. As part of our eCoaching Plus program, we also have a private members-only online community. And this is proving to be really beneficial for the members. It's a great platform to connect with other like-minded people, a really good platform for asking questions and getting answers, not just from us, but from other members in the group as well. A really good platform for shared learning of everybody. Okay, like the live Q&A sessions, we're finding that when one client asks a question and then it gets answered by us, a lot of the other clients may not have actually come up with that question themselves, but they can then get the benefit of the answer. So it's a really good shared learning type environment. A great opportunity to network with other e-coaching members. And it's a really good platform for us to share extra sort of on-the-fly content and keep in touch with everybody in a nice, easy way. Also, as part of the eCoaching Plus program, we also offer full one-on-one coaching and support as well. Okay, so you've got the benefit of all of the on-demand training sessions, all of the regular live group Q&A calls, as well as full unlimited email support, as well as one-on-one coaching calls when you need help. So basically, whenever you need help, you simply jump into the members area, you select to Shane or myself, and you book a one-on-one coaching call direct with us. And we jump on an online video call, and we work through whatever it is that you're struggling with at the time, or give you the help that you need. Okay. All right, so eCoaching Plus training and mentoring. If you want to learn more about it, discuss it further, meet properly, see if we're a good fit to work together to help you move forward with your property investing, feel free to schedule a 30-minute strategy call with either Shane or myself. and you can do it via the link there, or there'll be a link down below this video somewhere. Or otherwise contact us via our website, propertyinvestorcentre.co.nz, and navigate towards the contact us page, where you'll be able to send us an email, or there'll be a link there for you to book one of those 30-minute strategy calls as well. All right, guys, thanks very much, and look forward to helping you out with your property investing soon.